Marcus Chen rubbed his tired eyes as he walked through the dimly lit corridors of Mining Station 247. His footsteps echoed against the metal floors as he conducted his final inspection for the night. The station's artificial lighting cast long shadows, making the empty hallways feel even more lonely than usual. Just this last cargo hold to check, he muttered to himself, pulling out his tablet to mark off another section of his checklist. As the station's only xenobiologist, these routine inspections weren't technically his job, but he had volunteered for extra duties, anything to break the monotony of deep space life. The cargo hold's door slid open with a soft hiss. Marcus was about to do his usual quick sweep when a strange sound caught his attention. It was faint, so faint he almost missed it. But it sounded like whimpering. "Hello," he called out, reaching for his flashlight. "Is someone there?" The whimpering stopped for a moment, then started again, weaker this time. Marcus followed the sound, moving deeper into the cargo hold. He walked past tall stacks of mining equipment and supply crates until he reached a dark corner behind some empty fuel containers. What he saw made him freeze. There, curled up on a thin blanket, was a baby, but not a human baby. Its skin had a subtle shimmer of iridescent scales, and when it opened its eyes to look at him, they were large and amber-colored, like two perfect gemstones. "A Valaxian infant," Marcus whispered in disbelief. He knew enough about alien species to recognize one of the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy. But what was a Valaxian baby doing here, alone, in a human mining station? The baby made another weak sound, and Marcus's training kicked in. He knelt down, pulling out his medical scanner. The readings made his heart sink: severe dehydration, declining vital signs. Without immediate care, the infant wouldn't survive another day. Marcus knew the rules. The Valaxians were extremely protective of their children, and any human interference with their young was strictly forbidden by interstellar law. He should report this to station security, who would contact the Valaxian authorities. That was the proper procedure. But as he looked at the dying infant, another whimper escaping its tiny lips, Marcus thought about how long that would take. 3 days minimum for a Valaxian ship to reach them. By then, "To hell with procedure," he said, carefully wrapping the baby in his jacket. The infant felt cool to the touch, too cool. "I'm not letting you die because of paperwork." As he lifted the baby, something fluttered to the ground. A note, written in both Valaxian and English. "Please save her. I have no choice." Marcus held the infant closer, feeling her weak heartbeat against his chest. "Don't worry, little one. I've got you." He hurried through the corridors, his mind already racing through what he knew about Valaxian physiology. He'd need to modify human medical equipment, create special nutrient solutions, maintain proper temperature. It would be challenging, maybe impossible. But as the baby gripped his finger with her tiny hand, Marcus made a silent promise. "I don't know why your family left you here, but you're not alone anymore. We'll figure this out together." The station's night cycle continued quietly, unaware that in one small medical lab, a human was about to break every regulation in the book to save an alien child's life, and unknowingly set in motion events that would change 2 civilizations forever. 3 days into caring for the Valaxian infant, Marcus was running on coffee and determination. His medical lab had been transformed into a makeshift nursery, with modified equipment humming softly in the background. The baby, whom he'd started calling Aurora because of her shimmering scales, lay in a specially designed incubator he built using spare parts. Temperature holding steady at 32 degrees Celsius, he noted, checking the monitors. It had taken dozens of failed attempts to figure out the right environment for Valaxian physiology. "How are you feeling today, little one?" Aurora's amber eyes tracked his movement, and she made a soft chirping sound that he'd learned meant she was content. Her color had improved significantly since he'd found her, the scales now showing hints of blue and purple when the light hit them just right. "Station I, run another scan, please." Marcus requested, trying to hide his worry. The latest blood test had shown something concerning, patterns he'd never seen before in standard Valaxian medical texts. Scan complete, the AI responded. Warning: genetic anomaly detected in subject's cellular structure. Similar patterns found in cases of Valaxian Frost syndrome, a rare genetic condition. Marcus's heart sank. He'd heard of Frost syndrome during his xenobiology studies, a condition that made it nearly impossible for Valaxians to regulate their body temperature. Most infants born with it didn't survive their first year. No wonder they left you, he whispered, gently stroking Aurora's head. She leaned into his touch, another unusual trait. Valaxian babies typically rejected physical contact with other species, but they didn't count on human stubbornness, did they? For the next several hours, Marcus pored over every medical database he could access. He compared human and Valaxian biological systems, looking for similarities that might help. His own sister had been born with a rare condition that affected her temperature regulation. The treatments that had saved her life. That's it, he exclaimed, startling Aurora, who chirped in surprise. Sorry, sweetheart, but I think I have an idea. Working quickly, Marcus modified a human temperature regulation treatment to work with Valaxian biology. He used nanobots programmed with combined human-Valaxian medical protocols, something that had never been tried before. This might sting a little, he warned, preparing the injection. Aurora watched him with those intelligent eyes, staying perfectly still as if she understood. The trust she showed made his throat tight with emotion. The treatment went in. For several tense minutes, nothing seemed to happen. Then Aurora's scales began to glow softly, and her temperature readings started to stabilize. It's working, Marcus breathed, hardly daring to believe it. Station I. Confirm readings. Subject's core temperature stabilizing. Cellular degradation halting. Treatment appears successful, the AI reported. Marcus slumped in his chair, exhausted but relieved. Aurora chirped happily, reaching out her tiny arms toward him. Another thing Valaxian babies weren't supposed to do. You're just full of surprises, aren't you? He said, carefully lifting her out of the incubator. She snuggled against his chest, her scales shifting to match his body warmth. We've still got a long way to go, but we'll get there. As he held her, Marcus knew he should be worried about the consequences of his actions. Treating an alien child without authorization, modifying protected medical procedures. He'd broken enough laws to spend years in prison. But looking down at Aurora, peaceful and healing in his arms, he couldn't bring himself to regret any of it. Sometimes doing the right thing meant breaking all the rules. Little did he know that his improvised treatment wouldn't just save one baby's life. It would soon challenge everything both humans and Valaxians thought they knew about each other. The warning alarms jolted Marcus awake. He had fallen asleep in his lab chair, Aurora sleeping peacefully in her incubator nearby. Station I. What's happening? He asked, instantly alert. Valaxian vessel detected approaching the station. They are requesting immediate docking clearance. Marcus's heart pounded. After 3 months of caring for Aurora, he'd known this day might come, but he still wasn't ready. The baby stirred at the sound of the alarms, her scales shifting to a worried pale blue. It's okay, sweetheart, he soothed, though his own hands were shaking. Everything's going to be fine. The station's speakers crackled. This is Commander Roberts. Dr. Chen, report to Docking Bay 3 immediately. We have a situation. Marcus carefully lifted Aurora from her incubator. She chirped sleepily and curled into his chest, a gesture that still amazed him. She had grown so much, her scales now a healthy rainbow of colors, her genetic condition stabilized by his treatments. When he reached Docking Bay 3, a small group of station officials was already there, along with 2 armed security officers. The massive airlock doors opened with a hiss, revealing a tall Valaxian female. Her scales were the same iridescent pattern as Aurora's, but with streaks of silver marking her high rank. The Valaxian's amber eyes locked onto the baby in Marcus's arms. Her composed expression cracked, tears gathering in her eyes, something Marcus had never seen a Valaxian do. "My daughter," she whispered, her voice breaking. "You kept her alive." The security officers looked confused. Marcus stepped forward, still holding Aurora protectively. "You're her mother." The Valaxian nodded. "My name is Kalura." She took a shaky breath. "I am the one who left her here." A shocked murmur ran through the humans present. Kalura raised her chin defiantly. "When Aurora was born with Frost syndrome, our laws demanded she be." Kalura couldn't finish the sentence. "I couldn't do it. I had read about human compassion, how you care for your sick and weak. I prayed to our ancestors that someone here would save her." Aurora chose that moment to chirp happily, reaching one tiny hand toward her mother. Kalura's eyes widened at the sound. "She's speaking. But children with Frost syndrome never develop proper communication." Marcus nodded. "I developed a treatment combining human and Valaxian medical techniques. It's experimental, but it worked. She's going to live a normal life." Kalura stepped closer, her hand trembling, as she touched Aurora's cheek. The baby's scales shifted to match her mother's patterns, creating a beautiful light show that made everyone gasp. "Impossible," Kalura breathed. "She's showing advanced color bonding." "How?" "She's special," Marcus said simply. "She's been breaking all the rules about what Valaxian babies can and can't do since I found her." Tears were flowing freely down Kalura's face now. "I left her here hoping she might survive. Instead, she's thriving." She looked at Marcus with an intensity that made him nervous. "You did this. You saved her when our most advanced medical facilities said it couldn't be done." "I just couldn't let her die," Marcus said softly. "It wasn't right." Kalura straightened, her expression changing to one of determination. "Dr. Chen, what you've done goes against every law of non-interference between our species. You've also revolutionized the treatment of a condition we thought hopeless." She paused, then added words that would change everything. "And I believe I am falling in love with you." The docking bay fell completely silent. Aurora chirped happily in the quiet, unaware that her very existence was about to reshape the relationship between two civilizations forever. The days following Kalura's arrival turned Mining Station 247 upside down. Marcus sat in the station's conference room, watching as Aurora played with colorful blocks on the floor. Kalura stood nearby, her scales shimmering with anxiety as they waited for the video call with the Valaxian Medical Council to begin. "They won't like what we've done," Kalura said softly. "In our culture, mixing medical practices with other species is forbidden. And your treatment," she shook her head, "it goes against everything we believe." Marcus was about to respond when the large screen lit up. 5 elderly Valaxians appeared, their silver-scaled faces stern and disapproving. "Senior Scientist Kalura," the lead council member spoke, "you abandon your defective offspring, only to return claiming the human has cured what our best minds could not." Before Kalura could answer, Aurora chirped loudly and ran to Marcus, her scales changing color to match his uniform. A display of emotional bonding that made the council members gasp in shock. "Impossible," one whispered. "The child shows advanced color adaptation, and it willingly approaches a human." Marcus lifted Aurora gently. "Her name is Aurora, not it. And yes, she's capable of everything a normal Valaxian child can do, maybe more." The treatment worked. The council's leader leaned forward. "You dare speak to us, human. You have violated our most sacred laws by interfering with." "He saved my daughter's life," Kalura interrupted, her voice strong. "Our laws would have killed her. Look at her now. Healthy, happy, developing faster than any child her age." The council muttered among themselves. Meanwhile, Aurora had started playing with Marcus's tablet, skillfully operating the touch screen. Another skill that seemed to surprise the Valaxian elders. "Show us this treatment," one council member demanded. prove it can be replicated. Marcus pulled up his medical files on the screen, explaining how he combined human temperature regulation techniques with Valaxian biology. The council listened in silence, their expressions moving from dismissal to disbelief to reluctant interest. "This is unprecedented," the lead member finally said. "But it changes nothing. The child and Kalura must return to Valaxian space immediately. The human will face charges for his interference." "No." Kalura's scales flashed bright red, a sign of anger. "Aurora needs regular treatments that only Marcus knows how to administer, and—" She hesitated, then stood straighter. "And I have already expressed my intention to make him my mate." The silence that followed was deafening. Even Aurora stopped playing, sensing the tension in the room. "You cannot be serious," one council member sputtered. "A human mate? It's unheard of." "So was curing Frost syndrome," Kalura shot back. "Perhaps it's time for our people to learn that unheard of doesn't mean impossible." Marcus stood up, still holding Aurora. "With all due respect, council members, your way nearly cost this child her life. My way saved her. Maybe instead of arguing about rules and traditions, we should be talking about how to save other children like her." Aurora chose that moment to reach out and touch the screen, her scales creating a beautiful pattern that reflected both Marcus's and Kalura's colors combined. The sight made everyone stop and stare. "Look at her," Kalura said softly. "She bridges our two species naturally, without even trying. She shows us what's possible if we just open our minds." The council members whispered among themselves. Finally, the leader spoke again, his tone less harsh than before. "This requires further discussion. For now, both Kalura and the child will remain at the human station. We will reconvene in 1 week's time." After the screen went dark, Marcus looked at Kalura. "Well, that went better than expected." She smiled, her scales shifting to a warm golden color. "They're starting to see what I saw in you, that sometimes the best answers come from the most unexpected places." Aurora chirped happily between them, a living symbol of what their two species could become together. Marcus sat in the station's observation deck, watching the stars while Aurora napped in his lap. The past few days had been a whirlwind of medical discussions, cultural debates, and long talks with Kalura about their unusual situation. "May I join you?" Kalura's voice came from behind him. She moved gracefully to sit beside them, her scales glowing softly in the starlight. "Of course," Marcus smiled. "She just fell asleep after her treatment." Kalura watched her daughter breathe peacefully, scales shifting in dream patterns. "The latest medical reports are remarkable. Other Valaxian doctors are already requesting your research." "That's good news," Marcus said. "It means more children like Aurora can be saved." "Yes." Kalura paused, her scales flickering with nervousness. "Marcus, there is something important I must discuss with you. In our culture, when a female wishes to join with a male, she must." She took a deep breath. "Marcus Chen, I ask you to be my life mate." Marcus stared at her, stunned. "Kalura, Please, let me finish," she said quickly. "I know this seems sudden to humans, but I have watched you with Aurora. You saved her life when my own people would have let her die. You showed kindness when our laws demanded cruelty. You created medicine that was thought impossible because you refused to accept defeat." Aurora stirred in her sleep, instinctively reaching for both of them. Her scales shifted to match their colors, creating a beautiful blend of patterns. "See," Kalura whispered. "Even she knows we belong together." But her voice grew serious. "You should understand what accepting means. You would have to learn our ways, face criticism from both our peoples. Many humans and Valaxians will oppose this union." As if to prove her point, the station's communication system beeped. "Dr. Chen." Commander Roberts' voice came through. "Earth Central wants to speak with you about your situation. They're concerned about diplomatic implications." Marcus looked down at Aurora, then at Kalura. The decision felt both terrifying and somehow right. "Tell them they'll have to wait. I'm in the middle of something important. He turned back to Cholera. Before I answer, I need to know something. Is this proposal just about ensuring Aurora's continued treatment? Cholera's scales flushed with emotion. At first, perhaps that was part of it. But Marcus, she reached out, touching his hand gently. You human males are strange to us. You show softness yet remain strong. You break rules to do what's right. You care without weakness. I have never met anyone like you. Aurora woke up then, looking between them with her bright amber eyes. She chirped happily, reaching for both their hands and bringing them together. Out of all the beings in this vast galaxy, Cholera continued, you were the one who saved my daughter. You were the one who proved our medical science wrong. You were the one who showed me that sometimes love means defying your entire civilization. Marcus felt warmth spread through his chest. He knew this decision would change his life forever, bring challenges he couldn't even imagine. But looking at Cholera's hopeful face and feeling Aurora's tiny hands holding them together, he also knew his answer. In human tradition, he said softly, when someone proposes marriage, we usually say yes or no. He squeezed her hand gently. So, yes. Aurora burst into happy chirps, her scales creating a dazzling light show. Cholera's eyes filled with tears of joy, a very human reaction that made Marcus smile. Above them, the stars continued their eternal dance, witnessing a moment that would become legend in both human and Valaxian history. The day love began to bridge the gap between two very different worlds. The medical lab's alarms blared in the middle of the night shift. Marcus ran inside, finding Cholera already there, holding a shivering Aurora. The baby's scales had turned a sickly gray color, a dangerous sign. Her temperature is dropping again, Cholera said, fear clear in her voice. The treatment, it's not working anymore. Marcus quickly checked the readings. Her body's adapting to the medication. We need to modify the formula. But he was interrupted by the lab door sliding open. Commander Roberts walked in, followed by two Earth government officials in strict formal wear. Dr. Chen, these representatives have orders to escort you back to Earth. Immediately. What? No, I can't leave now. Aurora needs. This isn't a request, one official said coldly. Your unauthorized experiments with alien biology have created a diplomatic incident. The Valaxian High Council is demanding we hand over all your research and remove you from the case. Cholera's scales flashed with anger. You can't take him. Aurora will die without his treatments. The Valaxian Medical Academy will take over the child's care, the second official stated. They believe they can reverse the damage caused by human interference. Aurora whimpered, her small body trembling harder. The monitors showed her temperature dropping even further. Marcus looked at the officials, then at Cholera and Aurora, making his decision. No, he said firmly. Excuse me. I said no. Marcus moved to his medical station, already preparing a new batch of modified treatment. Aurora's condition is unique. The standard Valaxian treatments will kill her. Their doctors don't understand how the human elements work. The officials stepped forward threateningly, but stopped when Cholera moved between them and Marcus. Her scales had turned battle red, a sight that made even the stern officials step back. If you take him, she warned, you'll be responsible for my daughter's death. Is that the diplomatic incident you want? Suddenly, Aurora let out a painful cry. Her scales started flickering erratically, a sign of severe distress. The monitors screamed with warning signals. She needs both of us, Marcus said, working quickly to prepare the injection. Cholera, I need your bioresonance to stabilize her, like we practiced. Without hesitation, Cholera placed her hands on Aurora's chest, her scales glowing with healing energy, a sacred Valaxian technique rarely shared with outsiders. Marcus added his modified treatment, watching anxiously as the two methods worked together. For several tense moments, nothing seemed to change. Then, slowly, Aurora's scales began to brighten. Her temperature started to rise, stabilizing at the correct level. She opened her eyes, looking at both her parents with trust and love. The officials watched in stunned silence as the baby's scales shifted to display both human and Valaxian healing patterns simultaneously, something that should have been impossible. "Do you understand now?" Marcus asked quietly. "It's not about human medicine or Valaxian medicine anymore. It's about finding something new, something better, together." Commander Roberts, who had been quietly observing, finally spoke up. "I'll contact Earth Central and the Valaxian Council. They need to see this." He turned to the officials. "For now, Dr. Chen stays here." After everyone else left, Marcus sank into a chair, exhausted. Hilera sat beside him, still holding Aurora, who had fallen into peaceful sleep. "You chose us," she said softly, "even when they threatened to take everything from you." Marcus reached out to touch Aurora's cheek gently. "There was no choice to make. You and Aurora are my everything now." Outside the station, two distant suns crossed paths, their light creating a brilliant display through the lad window. It illuminated the small family, human, Valaxian, and the tiny miracle who proved that love knows no species. 1 year later, Mining Station 247 looked very different. The once quiet medical lab had been transformed into the first human Valaxian medical research center. Marcus stood at the observation window, watching Aurora play with other Valaxian children, all of them previously diagnosed with incurable conditions. "The latest results are incredible," Hilera said, joining him at the window. Her scales sparkled with happiness as she handed him a tablet. "The combined treatment has worked on 15 more children this month." Marcus smiled, watching Aurora teach the other children how to change their scale colors to match the station's lights, a game she had invented herself. "Remember when they said it couldn't be done?" "When they said we couldn't be done," Hilera corrected, touching the matching ceremonial bands they both wore on their wrists. The bands shifted colors in sync, a modification Marcus had created for their wedding. The door chimed, and Commander Roberts walked in, looking amused. "Your daughter's starting another revolution, doctors." "What did she do now?" Marcus asked, though he couldn't hide his proud smile. "She's teaching the human children how to understand Valaxian color speech, and they're actually learning it." Roberts shook his head in wonder. "The diplomatic corps is having fits trying to figure out how to classify this." Through the window, they could see Aurora sitting in a circle with both human and Valaxian children. She was showing them how to read the subtle color changes that made up her people's emotional language. The human children were copying her movements with colored lights they held, while the Valaxian children helped adjust their patterns. "She breaks every rule without even trying," Hilera said softly, "just like her father." A group of Valaxian doctors passed by, nodding respectfully to both Marcus and Hilera. In the past year, more and more of their medical experts had come to learn the combined techniques that had saved Aurora. "The High Council is requesting we expand the program," Marcus said, reading from the tablet. "They want to build 3 more research centers, and Earth government has approved them all," Roberts added. "It's amazing what saving a few children can do for interstellar relations." Aurora noticed them watching and waved excitedly, her scales creating a beautiful pattern that meant family in Valaxian. The children around her tried to copy it, creating a rainbow of light that made everyone watching smile. "She's going to change everything, isn't she?" Hilera asked, leaning against Marcus. "She already has," he replied, putting his arm around her. "And to think, it all started because you were brave enough to break the rules." "No," Hilera corrected him, her scales glowing with love. "It started because you were kind enough to follow your heart." The station's lights dimmed slightly, signaling evening cycle. The children began to pack up their things, but not before Aurora gave each one a hug, another human custom she had made popular among young Valaxians. As their daughter ran toward them, scales shimmering with joy, Marcus thought about the note he'd found with her so long ago. "Please save her. I have no choice." But there was always a choice to be kind, A choice to try the impossible. A choice to love across the boundaries of species and space. Aurora jumped into their arms, her scales creating a perfect blend of both her parents' patterns. Around them, the station hummed with life and possibility, no longer just a mining outpost, but a symbol of what humans and Valaxians could achieve together. What's next? Aurora asked in both human speech and color language, something she did without thinking. Marcus and Kalira looked at each other, then at their miracle child. Whatever you want, sweetheart, they said together. The whole universe is waiting. Above them, the stars twinkled like promises of adventures yet to come, in a galaxy that suddenly felt a little smaller and a lot more wonderful.